The United States military may be dropping Sig from being its primary pistol manufacturer, as it has now become impossible to ignore the issues with Sig's firearm, the P320. Now, since its debut, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt about it randomly going off when you drop it, or going off randomly when you do nothing. And although there's been video proof of it, Sig has been standing its ground saying, I don't know what you're talking about, and carrying on with business as usual. But just this past week, an airman was shot and unfortunately died from his wounds when he placed his duty weapon, the Sig P320, on a desk and it fired, fatally wounding him. And it's gotten so bad that the Air Force even put out an official memo saying that nobody's to carry the Sig P320, also known as the M17 or M18, until further notice. So today we're going to talk about the history of Sig getting the Army's contract, and well, all of the Department of Defense's contracting for this sidearm, the issues that many people brought up, Sig's response, and then this unfortunate occurrence that resulted in the death of an airman. But first, a word from this video's sponsor, Aura. There's companies out there in the internet known as data brokers, and they sell your data, selling it to marketers or scammers or stalkers or foreign governments. And while they're legally required to remove your data when you ask, boy, do they make it difficult. That's why I recommend today's sponsor, Aura, to my family and friends. Heck, I use it. Aura is all-in-one digital security, because they're going to give you alerts when your personal data is found on the dark web. Real-time fraud alerts for credit cards and banking. 24/7 monitoring to keep your identity secure. A secure VPN, antivirus software, and password manager, plus more. And it's got US-based support available around the clock should anything happen. And if anything happens, Aura includes $5 million worth of identity theft protection, with US fraud experts ready to help 24/7. Try Aura for 14 days for free at aura.com/angrycop, and check out the link in the description below. Let's start at the beginning. US military wanted a new sidearm to replace the M9. This bad guy here, made by Beretta. Something I carried overseas, and frankly, I loved so much that I had to buy my own. But who is in the running for this? Well, Sig, Glock, and Beretta were the main top players in this. And Beretta had an updated version of their fantastic M9A1, one that had a mount for an optic, that had a little rail system on the bottom so that way you could put a light on it when you're clearing rooms. One of the reasons the M9 was able to stick around for such a long time is because it's durable, and the Army certainly loves a safety on its pistols. Now, the Beretta is double action. Check that out. So when you fire off the first round, the trigger squeeze is a little rough because you're pulling the hammer back. But bam! After that first round goes off, the slide keeps that hammer in the rear lock position. Now pretend you're a private in the Army who hasn't really handled a pistol that much before, especially a Beretta M9. Well, you take that selector switch after firing some rounds and you put it on safe, and you're gonna have a mild heart attack. Because you better be ready for that hammer to go forward. Oh, sends shivers up my spine thinking about the several times that I first tried that. Now, why is that important? Well, the safety rolls over the firing pin, and even though the hammer goes forward, it won't fire, which is an important thing when making a firearm for the military or anybody else, that it doesn't go off accidentally. Message! And of course, we've got Glock in the mix with the Glock 19X. 9mm, I mean, no, there's no external safety in here, but I've been able to drop a Glock every now and again when tussling with some guys on the street, banging off some shit when I'm running around chasing them as well, and I have never heard of a Glock going off just because you jostled the shit out of it. I mean, it's probably the most widely used handgun in law enforcement, and I can't think of a story where one's accidentally gone off before. But did the Army go with its old fantastic standard with a new updated sleek kind of body and that mount? No, it didn't. Did it go with probably the most modularization or modularized or whatever modu thing the Army says that it likes so much? Is it modularity, modularization, whatever? The Lego block of all pistols? So customizable. No, it didn't. It went with Sig. because they were more modular than this? All right. So here we are, January 2017, and SIG has won the bid to create the next pistol that's going to be pushed across all the Department of Defense. And of course, once something gets picked up by our federal government in such a mass amount and quantity, well, there are going to be other people that are going to want that same firearm. And that's exactly what happened. Police agencies and other federal law enforcement agencies said, well, if this pistol's been tested so rigorously that it would win the Department of Defense's contract, well, it certainly must be good enough for us. So not only do you have the Department of Defense, now you've got tons of federal agencies and other law enforcement agencies picking up these pistols, handling them, using them, and running around on duty, and it's getting its wear and tear on exponentially more than any sort of government testing facility could do. And almost immediately, rumors start spreading. Firearms forums, Reddit threads. A low rumbling is starting to grow over the concerns of the SIG P320 and how if you drop it, it will fire. And what happens with rumors that start on the internet? Well, they grow and eventually they become science experiments for YouTubers. Now every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's got a gun YouTube channel is grabbing a bunch of 9mm blanks, putting them into the SIG P320 and dropping it to see if it does actually fire when it's dropped. And my oh my, were the results astounding.
We found in our testing that the P320 will fire if it is dropped at a certain angle. This angle is not found in any of the previously mentioned drop tests.
Drop test and a .40 caliber. It's got a prime case and then a dummy round on top with a full magazine underneath. Son of a bitch. So
immediate.
I guess it's really not drop safe, huh? That's not just a bunch of
one round. That was the very first time we'd ever done it, and it went bang.
We went out and we bought a brand new, never fired, fresh from the box, P320. All right, ready?
Now when you start getting viral videos amassing tens of millions of views about how your product is kind of going off whenever it's dropped, well, you want to make a response. And SIG's response was the VUP, the Voluntary Upgrade Program. No, it didn't say that, hey, if you drop our pistols, they'll go off and we're looking into it and we'll make sure we fix it. No. They say this is a voluntary upgrade program where you can turn in your pistol or receive the parts to upgrade and, I won't say replace, but replace your trigger, the sear, and striker assembly, which all improve, and I quote, the drop safety and prevent unintentional firing. Huh, it's almost like they had a problem with that. Now you would hope that the VUP, the Voluntary Upgrade Program, would have solved all of SIG's problems. Hey, here's a free upgrade to your pistol, come on and get it, we're making things better for you. We're upping the base model for free for you, cause you're such a good guy. But even after all that, it somehow got worse for SIG. But how? How could that possibly happen? Well, more and more people were reporting that it was starting to go off on its own. Not even dropping it, just firing. That's right, a pistol sitting there in a holster on a desk. No finger or anything anywhere near the trigger. And it's suddenly going off? That sounds impossible, some might say. And I'm sure SIG thought that. There's no possible way that any of this is actually real. Except one little thing happened. You remember earlier when I said that once the Department of Defense got those firearms, well, a lot of law enforcement agencies thought, hey, it's been tested by the government already, vigorously. Why don't we take it on as our department duty weapon? Well, a lot of police officers wear body cams, don't they? And if you're a police officer in a department that wears body cams, and a department that has taken on the SIG P320 as their duty pistol, well then you've got the perfect storm of accountability in the form of video and audio recording and the potential of a firearm that may potentially kind of go off by itself. Now evidence is no longer a problem. because police body cameras begin to record the Sig P320's random discharges of rounds while in a holster, while just sitting there doing absolutely nothing and then going off. And because it's a police department, they're notated. Uh-oh. Now we got video, audio, and we actually have a paper trail of these things happening with internal documents from law enforcement agencies about the pistol going off during training events when they're on the range, or in a courthouse, or even when they're effecting an arrest inside of a police station. Now the evidence is undeniable to SIG. So undeniable that all these agencies dropped the, figuratively and literally, the Sig P320 from being their duty weapons. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission, the Vancouver Police Department in Canada, Oregon State Training Agencies, the U.S. Air Force Global Strike Command, only recently after one of its troops died because the Sig P320 went off. But SIG made it worse. How did they make it worse? Well, they blamed the consumer. On March 7th, 2025, SIG was tired of it all. SIG decided that they were going to put out a post on Twitter and Instagram, all over the social medias, and say, enough is enough. It ends now, if I'm not mistaken. Which, hindsight being 2020, sure doesn't look too good right now. But let's read through it together, shall we? Sig Sauer. The P320 cannot, under any circumstances, discharge without a trigger pull. This is a fact. Ooh. Is it? The allegations against the P320 are nothing more than individuals seeking to profit or avoid personal responsibility. Couldn't happen to be just people that got shot.
I don't think this detective who shattered her fucking femur was anti-gun. She might be anti-SIG now. In February 2018, her holstered original version of the P320 discharged without a trigger pull as she jostled the holster to remove it from her belt. X-rays showed that her femur had been severed in half with shards of bone fragments and substantial shrapnel left in her right leg, as seen here. What an anti-gun grifter.
Recently, anti-gun groups, members of the mainstream media, trial attorneys, and other uninformed and agenda-driven parties have launched attacks on one of Sig Sauer's most trusted, most tested, and most popular product, the P320 pistol. In all cases, these individuals have an ulterior motive behind their baseless allegations that the P320 can fire without a trigger pull. They have no evidence, no data, and no empirical testing to support any of their claims. They instead chose to misrepresent clear, negligent discharges as a, quote, design problem. Which, by the way, you did come up with a design solution and called it the VUP. SIG went on to say, in the decades since its introduction, the P320 has undergone the most rigorous testing and evaluation of any firearm by military and law enforcement agencies around the world. It consistently delivers a proven record of performance and reliability through state-of-the-art engineering and documented quality control at every stage of its production. Rigorous testing, yes. You know, you can go through rigorous testing and it can still be like, I can go through rigorous testing and take the bar exam, and I can still fail it. So really, rigorous testing doesn't mean shit unless you learn from that rigorous testing. Like, I don't know, tens of thousands of firearms going out into the public and them using it and then finding out that it accidentally detonates all by itself. That would be rigorous, would it not? And speaking of rigorous, did you ever just drop it? Did you ever just drop it? Did you ever just fucking drop it? Huh, clear negligent discharges. Is this a negligent discharge? Discharges where nobody's touching the firearm, nobody's fingers in the trigger, and it just goes off? Discharges when people are putting it in the holster, finger not in the trigger whatsoever, and when it locks in, it goes off? Or when they're just standing there and it just goes off? That's their fault. That's their fault? Claims that unintended discharges are anything more than negligent handing and or manufactured lies to support an anti-gun, anti-SIG agenda are false. Furthermore, lawsuits claiming that the P320 is capable of firing without the trigger being pulled have been dismissed in courtrooms around the country. In addition, multiple plaintiffs' so-called experts have conceded it is not possible for the P320 to discharge unless the trigger is fully actuated. Huh, is it? The rhetoric is high and we can no longer stay silent while lawsuits run their course and clickbait, farming engagement, hacking grifters continue their campaign to hijack the truth for profit. Enough is enough. From the courts of law to the court of public opinion, we will combat the lies and misinformation with the truth. Sig Sauer stands behind the quality, safety, and design of all of our products, especially the P320. And then they say that, you know, the industry should be scared and aware that people are going after SIG for no reason, because they could be next. They could be next on the chopping block. But all of that context now brings us here today, because the headquarters of the Air Force Global Strike Command put out a memo just the other day after one of their airmen was killed when he put his firearm on his desk and it discharged all by itself. How strange. I thought SIG said a P320 couldn't do that. Immediate action required, effective immediately. All personnel in AFGSC will pause use of the M18 MHS for all operational and training activities until further notice. This pause will remain in place until completion of ongoing AFOSI and safety investigations into a recent incident at F.E. Warren Air Force Base. Wing commanders and DFCs will arm personnel with the M4 rifle in place of the M18. By the way, the M18 is the military nomenclature, the number that it's assigned to as a property item that the military uses for the SIG P320. So when you hear M18 or M17, that's just the normal version and the short barrel version of the SIG P320 made for the military. And at this moment, there is an Army unit that is doing the same. I just don't have confirmation of the Army unit that's doing that. So here we are, with all this history of the SIG P320 going off, them trying to make changes with the VUP, them going after everybody in their frickin' comment section of social media saying it's not our fault, nothing's happened, and then an avalanche of video evidence coming in showing SIG that there is an issue with it going off, culminates in, unfortunately, the death of an airman, and now the Air Force and the DoD taking note. I mean, all these other law enforcement agencies, including ICE, already took note and said, we're not dealing with this. We'll go to something else. But now even the Air Force is saying, what the is going on? Even SIG had a response to the airman who unfortunately lost his life. Our hearts are with the service members and families impacted by the recent reporting event at the F.E. Warren Air Force Base. We proactively offered assistance to the U.S. military as they investigate the incident and remain willing to help in furtherance of their ongoing inquiry. We have absolute confidence in the military's ability to conduct a thorough investigation and are working with the Air Force and Army to answer any of their questions. I guess my question, if I was the Secretary of Defense, after knowing about all these discharges caused and only caused by your weapon and its manufacturing, why didn't you remove those issues and fix them immediately, even as they continued to occur? And then, why wouldn't you notify the Department of Defense or other law enforcement officials that there was some sort of deficiency in your firearm, but you were working quickly in order to modify your weapon and solve that issue? Well, it almost seems as though you've been intentionally negligent in sharing this information with everybody about your product that fires rounds off all by itself, SIG. Now, I don't know how SIG's gonna recover from this. Frankly, my opinion is that it should be pulled. And then we go with the freaking Glock. You want modular? There's modular. Like I said, it's a freaking Lego. Do you know how many third-party companies there are that make additional add-ons for this thing? And you decided that SIG was gonna be the most modular firearm ever? Come on, DoD. Now, I know people that like SIG, and I know people that know the P320 is an issue, but like other firearms, like the P325 and other from SIG, I personally, and I'm sure many other people, probably don't want to put their money on a product where the company's entire existence is to make it shoot only when you want it to shoot, and then when it doesn't, they deny, and then act like spoiled children, blaming us for their product that's broken. Well, SIG, I hope you're happy. We all knew eventually it was going to happen, that somebody was going to get shot and they weren't going to make it back from your shitty pistol design that decides that it's going to randomly fire when it wants to. Honestly, I don't think anybody gives a about how it feels in your hands if they're not sure when it's going to go off. These night sights are great, but I sure wish I knew when it would go off. Pow! Oh, there was one. Mom? Updates. We have updates. Do you remember how I said that YouTubers will take items and things that they see and try to prove that something can or can't happen with them? Basically a science experiment on the internet for all of us to see. Well, some beautiful bastard did it with the Sig P320. Wyoming Gun Project. Go to his channel after this. Go to the link down below. I'll have the whole video linked. Took his own Sig P320 that he bought and decided he would do some experimenting. Now, the Sig that he has in his hot little hands right there is the Sig P320 after the VUP, the Voluntary Update Program. The one that's supposed to fix the trigger and stop it from going off randomly. Oh, this beautiful bastard did it. And by taking a screw, and I forget what those calipers are called that measure millimeters and thousandths of an inch, slowly moves the trigger back less than a millimeter, less than half of a millimeter, and then starts playing around with the slide. Guess what happens? It goes off. Then he puts a blank round into the chamber, puts the magazine in, keeps that trigger pulled back just a hair of a half, and then manipulates the slide, and guess what happens? It goes off. Now, WGP, Wyoming Gun Project here, cracked the code. And frankly, he does a great job of saying it himself, but I'll try to break it down for you. Do you know how easy it is for a trigger to be pulled back a half of a millimeter? Do you then know how easy it is for a slide to be torqued left or right as if a police officer is running with it in their holster? Very easy. I'm surprised you can't just jump up and down and have the thing go off, which, by the way, I'm sure if somebody put it on some sort of tumbler or a dryer that's going a little heavy, like one your mom used to sit on in order to get her jollies off, I'm surprised it wouldn't go off then. And I'm sure that we'll get more videos of it doing just that, jostling around and then firing. But like Wyoming Gun Project said, just a small amount of dust or crud or crap gets stuck in the trigger and pulls it back just that half of a millimeter. And then the slide moves. Just shifted to the left or right a little, and pow. I hope that somebody connects with the poor mother and father of that airman that lost his life because the frickin' firearm went off when he put it down on his desk, which I know right now is very little public information other than he just set it down on his desk and it went off. But at this moment, nobody from the military or anybody that was there or any investigator are correcting what people are saying. Holy shit, that video is amazing. Please watch it. It's 40 minutes of absolute brilliance, and he breaks down exactly what he does in order to make it go off, which is easy, extremely simple for it to go off all on its own. Best way to support the channel is to get yourself a shirt. This old crack house. Finishing it up, getting the final episode of the OG crack house going. Just gotta hang up some artwork. POB! Guess who doesn't get a POB? Sig. Sig doesn't get a POB. No POB for them. Cheapest way to support the channel is leave yourself a comment. Tell me what you think about this whole Sig thing. I'm very irritated because I don't like irresponsibility and people that lack integrity. And as always, there's more on Pepperbox. I'm going to say more words about this on Pepperbox. Words that start with the letter F and end in uck. See you next time, weirdos. Now, who is in the running? I probably shouldn't do that. I like Beethoven. Feel free to put that in somewhere. If it's God, my wife is listening to Stranger Things, and the kid screaming is going right through the floor. Can you turn it down?